Welcome to the Powerful Podcast, where you will learn the marketing, strategies, and beliefs to grow your dream business. Totally possible, and I'm so excited to share this with you. I'm Almira Bardai, and I grew and scaled my own business from zero to multi-millions and sold the business. And now I'm here to teach you exactly how to grow and scale your business from 6 to 7 figures and more with ease, simplicity, joy, and fun with, of course, strategy, mindset, and marketing to take you to that next level. Welcome to the Powerful Podcast. And I'm so excited to have Emily Gallagher, one of my own coaches. And I have to tell you, when I first connected with Emily just over text, there was just fire and magic. And it was like I've met a soul person. And Emily has been such a guiding force. I did her program Muse, which is going to be in the show notes before I forget to tell you, along with a quiz about where you are at in your feminine. So you can get that in the show notes. But Emily, there's just something to her. And we are sharing Emily's magic today, talking about feminine, masculine, nervous system, getting into the body, embodiment. You do not want to miss it. So let me start by quickly introducing Emily, and then we're going to get into her magic. Emily is a certified life and embodiment coach, TEDx speaker, and co-founder of Muse, a transformative company designed to help high-performing women reclaim their feminine gifts. With over 13 years of experience coaching thousands of women through her programs, private work, and global events, Emily is a master at guiding women through the complexities of modern life, love, and work while reconnecting them to their feminine energy. After building her coaching business, Conscious Boss, into a 7-figure enterprise, Emily encountered her own burnout, which led to a deep healing journey. Like many women, she'd been driven by deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy and hypervigilance, which, while contributing to her success, left her disconnected from her true self or a sense of aliveness in her life. This experience inspired her to shift focus towards what creates lasting, sustainable change so women could still have it all, yet in a new, more feminine way. In 2022, Emily co-founded Muse with longtime business partner and friend, Alexi Panos. Together, through online programs, embodiment retreats, and immersions, they tackle the chronic stress and disconnection many women experience from living predominantly in their masculine survival energy. Through their proprietary Muse method, which focuses on the nervous system, somatic work, and embodiment, they help women discover their sensuality, aliveness, and intuition, transforming not only how they relate to themselves, but also creating deeper intimacy and connection in their relationships. Emily's work in Muse and her private one-on-one coaching centers on helping women cultivate deep intimacy with themselves, allowing for more meaningful relationships and alignment in both their personal and professional lives. Her teachings are deeply informed by her own journey of balancing success with feminine embodiment and 13 years in the industry, truly knowing what works for women seeking to break free from burnout and live in full expression and deep intimacy. Emily's mission is clear: to help women create a life that feels vibrant, magnetic, juicy as fuck, and true to their authentic selves, both in love and in business. Oh my gosh, Emily, I love it. Love it. Amazing. So I wanted to dive in. And as we talked about in our discussions, there's so much talk about feminine and masculine and healing all parts of it. But can we start with what exactly does that even mean? And how do you heal it and blend it together and create magnetism? I want to turn this over to you to deep dive and to demystify, because I feel like there's curiosity about it, but I don't know if there's understanding about it.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for that sweet introduction and for being here. I'm so excited that we get to dance and play in this way. Yeah, it's one of those things, it's such a hot topic right now, as we were talking about before, like, once you get into the algorithm, there's all this feminine work and these conversations of masculine and feminine. And, I think it's one of these concepts that, like honestly, that my kind of belief around personal development and growth, having been in the industry for, 13, 14 plus years, is like all of these concepts, all of these ideas are super helpful for us to have awareness around. And then there's also like nuance to how we hold them, because I think like with the shifting away from, the boss babe era, the hyper masculinized, output driven, focused kind of independent woman era that is classically defined as a little bit more masculine, moving now into this more soft girl era, feminine girl era, this kind of energy. it's like what I guess I'm kind of wanting to stay away from is the binary nature, and also where the labels can feel constrictive. So because when we talk about the concepts of masculine and feminine, lots of people have lots of different ideas about what that means. And so even kind of trying to define in a way, what does it mean masculine and feminine energy? What does it mean masculine and feminine dynamics? My invitation is always like, how does it feel supportive for you to dance with that? And we can, of course, talk about some of the differences, but I also just want to presence, like, they can start to become binary boxes that also start to feel like ways that we as women start to shame ourselves again. Like, oh, I'm too masculine. Oh, I'm not feminine enough. Like, what does it mean? And so that's just something I want to presence, because it's like really taking the concepts and then bringing them into your own space. Like here at Muse, you'll know, being part of Muse, like we talk about integrated and embodied wholeness as women, right? So really figuring out, how does the inner masculine and the inner feminine come together for us to feel whole as a woman? And so I presence that because both are amazing and we need both, like both men and women need both. And, we're just spinning away from, I think, this kind of hyper masculine culture, but where we're now almost like villainizing the masculine, like, oh, even just towards the actual external masculine, like men in general, there's a lot of negative energy towards men in the world, right? And now there's this negative energy towards our internal masculine. And so it's really about like, there's also a lot of, I'll say, I guess, confusion around what we call masculine. That's actually, like here at Muse, we call either wounded masculine or like hypervigilance and survival, right? So I know when I was in my quote unquote hyper masculine era, I was in a lot of hypervigilance. I was in a lot of survival. I was in a lot of chase. My nervous system was very activated. And that's not necessarily masculine energy, whilst it did drive me to create and produce, because I was basically being run by a lot of proving energy. It wasn't necessarily masculine energy. It was a lot of hypervigilance, right? And so I think there's a real big distinction even with that within this landscape. Like, are you in masculine energy or are you in survival energy? Are you in hypervigilance? Are you afraid to stop because you think everything's going to stop because your nervous system is so activated and your safety strategies are so, channeled towards that thing? So that's one thing that I'll say about, the masculine side of things, because I think that's a lot of where most people that we work with, most women that we work with, likely most women that you work with, being entrepreneurial women, are coming a little bit more from that landscape. So I just want to presence that around the energy of that. Yeah. And then it's also just like, once we create like we heal that aspect a little bit more, then we create space. Like the masculine is really there for creating containment for the feminine. That's the same with externally, like in relationship, if you're, heteronormative, the masculine pole is the containment for the feminine to feel safe, but that also is the interplay within ourselves. So really kind of coming into union with both of these energies internally is really, really crucial, versus, oh, I've been really masculine and now I just have to be feminine. It's like really working out how that works. And that's also going to look different for everyone. And that's kind of bringing back to that front point of being mindful of, that's what feminine looks like, or that's what masculine looks like. And really like coming into within yourself, what does like inner union feel like? What does having my own back feel like? What does feeling soft and available to receive feel like? And really kind of weaving those together with your own formula, if that makes sense.
I love it so much. And I think one thing that just came up for me right now is that also safety, which is, there's so much conversation on social media right now. And it's funny, sometimes I wonder, is everybody having these conversations in the quote unquote real world, or is it my Instagram world who's having this conversation?
Right, the echo chamber.
Right. But going back to the point about feeling safe in your body, which is, we'll talk about the nervous system, but that is quote unquote, again, masculine, is I can feel safe, but how do I bring that to myself to be able to hold it, so I can hold all of the pleasure, or even all of the what have been labeled as the negative feelings or the over emotionality. Like that's all okay to have. And I think women have also been labeled as having all of these emotions, or, not enough stoicism, but actually, when you have yourself, you can dance with everything. And you also know that you can hold it. And I think in periods of my life is that I've been so afraid of having the big, angry, ragey feelings and letting go of it for fear about that I would actually like collapse into a depression and not be able to move forward. And then the more I could also separate from it and say, hold on, my body is feeling this. This is not truth. And you and Alexi talk so much about the dojo, the practice of all of this is that when I could say, wait, I'm still learning, I'm still practicing, but also be able to separate the emotionality from everything and to be able to hold it in a very safe place, it was like, oh, my life is not going to collapse after all. Like, I got this, I got me. And I mean, some days it feels like there is like a punching bag fight war happening inside my body as I try to figure it all out or to be able to move forward. But then also, as you keep saying, is that I could take a step back and be able to dance with it. And how am I dancing with it? And how am I holding it? And how am I getting to know myself better? Which, you know, in my generation of women, you know, the power woman was the woman with the blazer and the shoulder pads. And there was never those conversations about what softness looked like, but also an internal softness to be able to meet ourselves and our truth. And this is what I teach in my work is, well, what is it that you desire as the entrepreneur and the woman for your life? And it's not about, okay, let's go set up this business. I want to get to from 6 to 7 figures. I want to do all this, but what is it that you actually want? And I don't know if women have asked themselves that question enough. You know, if they did, it was not a deep exploration or it was not something that filtered through everything. But unless you're doing that work, as you say, you're just moving to survival. And what's the point of doing everything if you're going to end up living your life in survival and hypervigilance? That's not joyful. And so for me, that question keeps coming down for me is that what is the point of it all if you're not coming from that softness of meeting yourself, but then also meeting your edges? And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about meeting those edges and then what it talks about to be able, what is the nervous system, first of all, but then capacity building, holding it and having those edges in your nervous system to be able to start that dance with yourself and that dance with life.
Yeah, super big, juicy questions there. And I want to just underline too, like that question you said that you ask a lot of your clients, and we see that with the women that we work with, the women that I work with privately as well. It's like, a lot of women these days don't actually know the answer to what do I actually want? What do I actually want? What do I desire? Like we've gotten to this place where we don't even know like what it is we want in our life, like how, and then even if we have that, are we actually able to have the capacity to experience it? Because there's a very different quality of life of creating things and actually experiencing them. And I say that as a high achieving, previously pretty alpha woman that achieved a lot of things in her life, but did not experience them. And this is the difference that you'll know coming through Muse, right? The context of your life that shifts fundamentally from creating to experiencing. And that doesn't mean not still creating all of these epic things. Like I'm still ambitious. I love a good life. I'm still building business, doing all the things. But I can now actually experience my life. So the quality of my life in every capacity in every region, from my relationships to my business to every single moment of my day, has shifted. So it's we get to actually be in the deep trust of knowing what we desire, and then also having the capacity to truly experience it. Because, you know, that was my story when I was, you know, launching multiple programs, planning international events, writing my TED talk. And you mentioned this about like, what if I allow myself to feel things, I may never come out of it. Like I spent 3 weeks in bed going, what the fuck is it all for? Sorry, I don't know if we can swear, but
absolutely. I've been ranked explicit on Apple.
I saw that actually.
First episode, I
saw
like,
that. Yeah, I actually saw that and noticed that's hilarious. Yeah, we're untamed women over here. Okay, we will swear if we desire to.
Constantly.
Yeah, and it was like it was that moment that I realized like I was getting through my life instead of actually experiencing it. I was writing in my journal. I was like, once I get through this launch, once I get through and that's how so many women are living our life. Not just women, just humans in general. Like we're in this fast-paced, moving forward, never stopping society. And this kind of links into your question around the nervous system and the expansion, because for most of us, we don't have a nervous system that can hold stillness, that can hold presence, that can hold being grounded, because our safety strategies, which is, essentially how our nervous system is wired from the age of 1 to 7 based off of our childhood, who we had to be in our home, how our nervous system responded to our environment is essentially how our nervous system got wired, right? I had a very inconsistent childhood in the sense of like I had a loving family, but there was a lot of inconsistent dynamics. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of instability and, emotionally. And so like my nervous system is a little bit more anxious. It's a little more prone to like really like certainty and things like that. And so hence why I built, right? More money, more success, because my nervous system underneath was driving me towards what it believed safety was. And so this is how most humans, unless we actually do the reconditioning work, which is what we're talking about, right? In the dojo, leaning into our edges, exploring the nervous system, will just be unconsciously run because it's literally your body. Like your nervous system is like, and that's what feels like kind of what you said, like truth. It's like, oh no, I need to make more money because that will create safety. I need to be in this kind of relationship because that will be safety. I need to, and in Muse, we talk about this, like the external hooks, like where is the place? And when you're listening, maybe think about this question for yourself, like where is the place outside of yourself that you've put your sense of safety? So for me, mine was my body for like my whole life. My story was I have to look a certain way, I have to be a certain size to be valuable and worthy. And so what did that mean? That meant I spent 33 years of my life dieting, restricting, trying to control my body, over exercising, never feeling good enough, never feeling worthy, because that was the place that I said, once you look a certain way, you will be safe. Another one was money, and another one was like in relationships. Like if you get chosen by the hot guy, you're worthy. So, years and years and years of chasing unavailable men. So this affects every area of our lives, because until we become conscious of it, we're literally being run by it. And so what we do in Muse and with my private work as well is we explore where are the edges of that nervous system strategy, because that's the level to which you can experience your life, is within the confines that you're essentially your nervous system feels safe, right? It's like people who don't want to speak in front of a room, that's because your nervous system would totally override that and feel like you're about to die, right? And so the more space that we make systematically and strategically in our nervous system to essentially, and this is again with the question of what do I desire, when we can answer that question, then we know where some of the edges are that we need to push into for our nervous system. So for example, one of my desires was I want to feel safe, to feel seen more in my body now. Like, okay, so what does that look like? It means wearing some different clothes. It means putting myself in certain environments. And we call this titration, because we do it over time give your body the experience that, oh, I didn't die. Oh, boom, more safety. Boom, more range. Okay, boom. And then over time, that's why in this work of Muse, people sort of can become unrecognizable, because just over time, we lean more into the expansion of the woman you desire to be. And then all of a sudden you look around and go, whoa, I can like hold so much more of life than I used to be able to, because my body and my nervous system has the capacity for that.
For those who aren't familiar with nervous system, how would you actually define what the nervous system is?
Yeah, well, so basically the nervous system is it's your, like how your body essentially, your entire nervous system, which is essentially just your system in your body, is wired. It's like what's basically running everything in your body, all of your reactions, all of your biological functions, and it's that's what's wired in from that really young age. And so until we actually like consciously go and rewire it, it's running everything. It's literally your central system, is your central functioning piece of your body that's running your entire life and your entire biological functions, basically.
I think one of the most interesting experiences for me in Muse was actually like taking a step back out of my body and just kind of looking at it almost as if I would look at an X-ray and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much chaos everywhere. Or it felt like chaos. And I think it came from, as much as I was having so much fun in building my business to 7 figures and it was amazing, but there's a pace of it. And so my body internally was used to just a pace, keeping to move forward, but then you track it back to childhood or teenagehood. And for me, I mean, everybody's familiar with my story. I was bullied when I was a kid. So it was that sense of just always running so that I wouldn't be in a place where a bully could find me. And I was bullied because of my skin color. So it's pretty much impossible to not see me because my skin was brown. Everybody's skin was white. And so there was this sense of hypervigilance that was running through everything. And when I could take a step back to actually see it, but then what it was causing across like whatever there might be that was peaceful in my life, my nervous system would be like, okay, let's talk about something else. And so when I could see the pattern that was happening, because maybe it was my social life, and I'm like, oh, that feels amazing. I love it. It feels gorgeous. And I'm so happy with it. But then I would look at money and be like, ooh, that one's chaotic. Or it was chaotic because my body needed to find something to hook onto. So the external ones where it's finding safety or just the normalcy of how it's used to being is I'm creating complete chaos here. But it also gave me the ability to take a deep breath and say, okay, this is not me. This is my nervous system. And funny enough, as I got through intimacy in Muse, I also got through de-intimacy or detachment to be able to say, this is just a pattern running me. It doesn't actually mean anything about me, because I could finally see my own glory or for everything in my fullest expression and being, I'm fully worthy. We're born worthy, and that's just another conversation, but you are innately worthy and amazing to have everything that you want. And so when I could step out of these false narratives, it was just such a different perspective. And now I can look at things. And when I'm feeling the hypervigilance coming up, I can say, ooh, that's not me. I can take a step back, but also have the ability to process it and be able to sit with it, because I guess I didn't recognize it. So how could you sit with something you don't recognize? And I think that was the first step to be able to say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's look at this. It's safe to take a step back and to be able to sit with it, because we're just discovering a pattern. It doesn't mean anything about me, and I'm learning about me, what lies beneath.
That's such a powerful point, because, as someone who has been in personal development and coaching for, 13 plus years before Muse, right? It wasn't until Lexi and I really went through this journey together and then built this program that we really realized this is so key. And this is the crucial key to actually sustainably being able to shift, because, that's the thing, especially in this kind of consumptive world, more information, more content, And the awareness piece is huge, because we can't really shift, right? We can't intervene in a world we can't see, right? We can't, if we don't understand our patterns and have some awareness around it. That's really, really crucial to being able to see those. And then obviously really getting in and doing the nervous system work. But it's really powerful what you said of just okay, this isn't me. This is my pattern. This is my body and my nervous system's trained response, because it thinks it's doing something that keeps me safe. For example, for me, because we have a lot of women that come to us that want deeper intimacy and dating and relating experiences, whereas a big area where there's, women that come to us want support with. And one of the biggest places that this shows up, because when we want to be fully claimed and cherished and chosen and receive devotion and all these yummy desires, but we don't have a nervous system that feels safe in vulnerability, that feels safe to let go, that feels safe to surrender, we are not going to receive that. And then also when we have a nervous system that, plays out relationship patterns based off of, generally what we received when we were younger. I had my dad traveled for work. He was also emotionally unavailable. He was emotionally inconsistent. And so my wiring was my body would light up in those relational environments, which kept me chronically unmet, unseen, and unsatisfied in my relationships. And it wasn't until I did this work to see, to your point, oh, so when I'm feeling graspy, activated, anxious, trying to lean forward to grasp onto someone. Like that's actually what my nervous system was trained is safety because of how I was growing up. And the irony is once we realized that, I'm like, this is actually the very thing that is keeping me from the thing that I want, which is deep, secure love, to be fully chosen, to be fully able to like be vulnerable and receive. Yet I was choosing people where that would never be safe. And so many, not just women, humans are doing this because again, until we're conscious of it, that's just really powerful to know that like, oh, this isn't me because it's not capital T truth, but our body thinks it is. But that's when having the capacity to really hold ourselves through that is so big. So it's like when you're getting activated, you want to reach out and have that person, you know, text you or reach out for connection or whatever, like that activated part. And, you know, we say this in Muse, activation is the invitation. So rather than just believing something is true, like, oh, I'm feeling really afraid if I don't make more money, I'm like sitting in scarcity, or I'm really feel like this person, I need to hear back from them. Like that activation is the invitation for self-soothing. That activation is the invitation to hold. And the more we are in the practice of that, it's really about regulating the nervous system, coming back to center, and that's really also how we start to build capacity to just hold ourselves through more of life. And then when we can do that, we can therefore then hold more of life.
I love that. And one thing that I want to point out is that it's not about holding the emotions back. And I think there's some confusion in there that it's like, okay, I've held it. I don't actually know what to do with it now. And it almost feels like you're suppressing or repressing. And there's such a difference when there's the discussion about nervous system holding capacity. You're actually holding yourself. You are allowing everything to flow. And it's not about, you know, allowing it to flow at a partner or something, you know, it is going into your private space, or maybe it is having that conversation with that ever loving girlfriend who just has the capacity to listen, because that's what our body needs. And sometimes we need to be witnessed. What is it that works for us? It's not about this rule book that says we should do this, we should do this. And for me, I equate it to entrepreneurship, where it feels like there was this old school fucking weird model of entrepreneurship that's just so ridiculous. And it's like, no, what do I need? What do I want? And so going back to the nervous system is, what do I need? What do I want? But also let me explore. And I can explore everything. And I feel like there's also this message to women that, yes, we can have everything, but you have to act a certain way in order to get it. And so there's this rigidity, and we also find safety in the rigidity and in holding your body. And that's not safety. That is just hypervigilance and just trying to control. But when you can soften and start to explore a different tool, such as EFT tapping, holding ourselves, having tea, going to an anger room, letting the rage out, having that personal pillow fight, like however you want to let it out, and hold it in a private way, or again with a friend, and being able to express that and also not to label it. Like, I just need to get rid of the negative emotions that I can come back to in a high vibration, which again, there's so much talk about raising your vibration. You're actually raising your vibration when you let go of that shit. But it's this good girl modeling or people pleasing, which you don't need to do that to be able to get it out and to hold yourself. And you're actually coming to meet this extraordinary version of you that can express it all and hold it all, again, without like dumping it at someone or at your man's feet, if you will, that he's just like, okay, there's too much here, because now there's just dysregulation happening. But the ability to be able to hold it in yourself, but without suppressing it, repressing it, you can express it. And also not going down the stories of what it means. You can just see that or feel it without, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know if there's money dysregulation and this means I'm going to be broke forever and I'm not going to be able to meet my dream, and all down that path. And it's like, whoa, just come back to that feeling, come back to what is happening. And then it's like, oh, it's just like the light shines again. And I love how it brings that aliveness. I mean, that is how we bring into it. And I think being told or growing up in an environment where we're all programmed by society to believe those external things bring us aliveness. But all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I can feel alive in my body. And that's actually going to light me up and magnetize everything to me. I think that's such an extraordinary concept. And so I would love to dive into that and actually let me take a step back with one, which how to actually move the energy, because when you're doing all of that work, there's so much energy that's happening. It's almost unholdable, if you will. So I'd love to explore how to do that. And then going back to feeling alive in your body, the magnetism, why get into it? And then we can talk about embodiment practices after that, although it might just actually ladder into how you answer.
Yeah, amazing. I know it's such just like a well of so much goodness this conversation, Yeah, and so when we talk about like nervous system work, and we talk about even like increasing our capacity, right? Because you mentioned like it can feel like so much.
Mhm.
And there is that fear for a lot of people to not want to touch any of it. Like that's why we live in such a sedated society, right? Alcohol, suicide, depression, loneliness, porn, food, like these are all sedatives. These are all sedatives from like and numbing agents from the aliveness that people feel, because aliveness is all of it. And guess what? It's really fucking uncomfortable. Like
Yes.
it is uncomfortable, right? There's a reason why it's called the work. And I'll say that, but the caveat that also when you start to cultivate this relationship to really allow all of it and to start to commit to holding yourself, and we'll talk about obviously how and things like that. There is so much sweetness that comes from this, because it's like, it starts to shape everything. It starts to create all this space. It starts to allow you different ways to show up in all of your relationships. You start to have different capacity to move through these patterns that haven't shifted for your whole life. Like there is just so much richness that comes from this, that it just starts to become really sweet when you start to, like, doesn't mean it's not uncomfortable, but it just, once you kind of know, you can't unknow, so you're like, wow, like I really know now that I'm numbing out of this, or I really know that I'm kind of not choosing to hold myself right now. And this is, again, like nobody's freaking perfect. Like we're all going to have moments where we're going to distract, where we're going to numb, where we're going to avoid. Like it's all perfect, but it's really about like, firstly, reclaiming responsibility for the experience of our life, because this really comes, like we see this a lot, we talk about in Muse, you have to be ready to really take ownership of your life, because there's a lot of finger pointing that happens when we experience life. Like if my partner would just show up this way, if you would just act differently, if I would just have more money in my bank account, if I would just be seen and respected in the workplace, then I'll, right? And that just keeps the experience of our life always contingent, again, on some experience outside of us. So when we reclaim the responsibility for our experience of our life, that's really what this is about. It's like, okay, so it's not like, okay, this experience has happened. How am I responsible for that? How do I want to feel about this? How do I hold what's going on here? What maybe is this activating inside of me? So again, the titration piece is like going slowly over time and allowing yourself space. But the misconception really about big feelings is that they are going to completely swarm you and take you over. And sure, maybe there'll be some that are bigger than others. And often an emotion fully given permission does not last that long. But the amount of energy that we spend on distracting, pushing, repressing, that's why so many people, like, if you feel like you're really defensive or reactive, or easily triggered, like that's like easily frustrated, easily sad, like that's just really a strong sign that there's a lot under the surface that's being pushed and repressed. So it always feels like it's kind of right there. But when we fully like open the hose, like unkink the hose, we say in Muse, and we just allow space for all of it, it doesn't take a lot of, there might be some backlog. So there might be a little bit of like clearing some files off the desk to feel a little bit, but also just giving yourself permission, like to go slow. Just, can you sit with yourself a little longer? Can you put off the distraction mechanism a little longer? Like, how can you just give yourself grace? But also with the knowledge that, like, really giving it full permission, it generally doesn't stay, especially if we stay out of the story. If we stay in the feeling without going into the story, that's really key to this as well, because the story will keep you looping. But when we fully just allow the feeling is very organic. So it's usually just is like, hey, feel me, I'm here, I've got some information for you. Are you willing to receive it? And then it will move along.
And also, it's not necessarily truth, because our body just needs to let it out. Sometimes it very much is truth, but sometimes it's just, there's the whole concept of meditation. Just let your thoughts flow by. But it's true, because our minds are just going to do things or say things. And the ego, of course, is just so loud, and just let it go and it will happen. One of the things also that I got really present to was the sensations in my body, because sometimes it just felt like it was a tsunami. And when I actually just got into it, you end up in, it's almost like being underwater where it's so peaceful. And it actually just wants to go by, or just to be seen or acknowledged. It's sometimes not even here to give you a message. And I just equate it with and say to myself, and this is in a lot of ways how I find the safety to be able to deal with it, is that the universe is an ocean of vibration. And so I'm just underwater, I'm chilling out, I'm experiencing life, I'm enjoying it. But sometimes these really big waves might come, but it doesn't have to be about me. And I don't need to attach to that. It's just the concept of, detachment and equanimity, which I don't even think I'm using the definition right, because to me, equanimity means just like neutrality. So I don't think I'm using it right, but I just feel like that word works for what I'm trying to describe. But it's okay. And I don't need to lean into all of my bullshit or the bullshit, And I think that's just really freeing.
Yeah, it's powerful. And yeah, it's, like you said too, of like, oh, as to be a good woman or to be a woman, you have to act like this. You said something a little bit before, just about like how it has to look to be a woman. And I think there's a lot of, I was on a call with my client the other day, and we were just talking about like the resistance to anger. And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have these feelings towards someone, or I shouldn't have these feelings, or this should go away, or this is inconvenient. Like all of these stories that we had, this resistance, this like internal resistance to just the experience, like the human experience, like, oh, I shouldn't feel that. I shouldn't experience that. Oh, I shouldn't think this about this person. It's like, that doesn't mean you're going to share it or like whatever, but like hold space for that. Like really just allowing the full spectrum of all of it is really crucial. But it's also just giving yourself permission to, again, the good woman, the shoulds, the good woman in society, how she holds herself, how she feels, etc. And it's like really just like unleashing that. That's how we create range. That's how we create passion. That's how we give, create more joy, pleasure, aliveness, all of it, by fully giving permission to just let it be there.
Yes. Oh my gosh, range. That reminds me of going through Muse and talking about range. Can you speak more to that? Because I think women have, and actually men and women have been limited to a range of what it is that you can feel and experience. And so what is that? And then I think that also goes back to the question about feeling alive in your body and magnetic, because when you have that range and you can experience it or process it or just witness it, that's where the magic lies.
Oh yeah, it's range is everything. And yeah, so like range is really about, and looping back as well to of course, to the nervous system, and definitely to embodiment. It's like range is like how much spectrum of like yourself do you have? Like how much range do you have as a woman? Can you touch your rage? Can you touch your grief? Can you touch your fear? Can you touch your anxiety? Can you then on the other side, can you touch that radiant, magnetic, lit up woman? Can you touch your seductress? Can you touch your huntress? Like when we start to play in this world of Muse, it's like you start to see how many flavors there are, how many channels there are, how much when we take ourselves out of this box. And this is where this work is so potent, like again, like I said, after being in it for so long, we start to form this really rigid sense of identity, like, oh, I am this way, this is who I am. I'm, like I used to think, like, because I was told when I was building my business, oh, you're pretty masculine and so it's like, oh, I'm a masculine, I'm this, I'm parts of my personality that felt rigid. And then when you start to do this work and you start to wake up, what do I desire? What do I want to feel? How do I want to be? Like I really wanted to be able to, when I get married, I wanted to be able to do a really beautiful dance for my husband, so that's like, okay, so that informs some things. That means I need to be able to witness, to be seen, to be confident in my body. Like there's all of these, when we wake up these desires, it informs what kind of range do I want? And this is also like, when we take away the prescriptive side of like feminine and masculine or anything, it's like, who do I want to embody? What's the shape of the woman I want to be in the world? Like, do I feel like I want to access more of my artist? Do I want to be like access my performer? Do I want to be, in my dark, drippy, seductive? Like, when we can really like create space for, again, the fullness of a full aliveness, like this is the practice of allowing full energy, emotion, everything, having the capacity to stretch into these spaces. It gives us access to all of these other layers. And then it's kind of like, I'm just thinking now in this moment, it's almost like, choosing a curriculum. Like if you go, okay, so I want to have that range and that flavor, and I want to lean into that. Likely, if you're not currently experiencing it, it's going to be pretty edgy to start to touch into those flavors. It's going to be like barriers of who you thought you were that you get to start feeling like, oh, that wasn't actually who I was. That was, like you said earlier, that's a patterned version of me. Like I have this, you've probably, I'm sure I've brought it up in Muse. I have this part of my personality called General G.
Love it.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently, when I had like an Akashic record reading years ago, she said I was a general in my past life, which a lot of my friends closely have seen that side of me. But it's like, even that, it's like these stagnant pieces of us that we say, this is just how I am. And what I realized through really exploring my desire and doing a lot more of this Muse work and realizing like, I desire to be soft. I desire to feel generous. And this is not, again, not prescriptive. This is my personal desire. And really seeing like, wow, I can actually see that General G part of me was formed because I'm actually really sensitive. I'm actually soft and gooey inside and quite sensitive. And so this part of me was formed, like it's rigid, as the protector of that part. And so what's been able to be really beautiful is I, as the adult Emily, again, through doing this work, can step in and become my own protector, not defended, not armored, right? But actually be able to feel comfortable because I know I've got me, so I can feel available to be soft, available to be vulnerable. That's drastically shifted how I show up in my dating experiences, how I can receive, my intimacy levels, because this part of me was doing the best, but now I have, again, more range because I've got greater capacity. I have more resources. I've essentially become more resourceful. Because I'm not being run by patterns now. I'm being run by the desire of like, who do I decide to be? What is that range, right? Like I've discovered my super seductive, dark, drippy, like creature type range. And it's just like choose your adventure. But when you really realize, oh, I'm not this person, I could be all of these flavors, then you can start to really play. And that's, again, like you said, the magnetism, the radiance, because you're alive, you're full, you're exploring. Like, it's a woman lit up. Like that is magnetic because it's actually quite rare.
Yes. And I was reading this article the other day, and it was talking about all the electricity that we actually carry in our body. And there's, connected to light, and it's on our DNA and things. And I think to me, it almost feels like we define DNA as who we are and our identity and things like that. But when you start to open it up and be like, hold on, I'm made of light, so my body's alive. And now I'm going to start exploring. And who am I actually? And then again, it goes to the identity work that we talk about or is talked about in personal development. Well, my identity is that I'm all of it. I can feel all of it. It's not rigid. And I love General G, by the way, because I was just like, for so long, I defined myself as this badass. And everybody even says it. They're like, you're such a badass, which I love. But then I'm like, well, what if I want to be a soft ass? And I had to look at all of that because I just want to chill out, or I just want things to come to me without me having to be so rigid about like my goals and I want this financial dollars and whatever. And I'm just like, I'm so bored by that. And I think I've actually always been bored by it, but that's how you did things back then. And so now that I can explore what is it that I want and putting that first, everything almost naturally falls in line because I am lit up. I am pouring into me. And so everything else that comes out of me or that is a result of that is actually the overflow. And that's where the aliveness comes and the magnetism. but it comes through my textures and my alignment and what it is that I'm exploring at that moment. And honestly, I can be like a bad bitch 1 minute, and then the next minute I'll be like, cool, that's over. I need to move into something else. And that's okay. That's what it is that I need. And that's where I'm finding my joy. And I'm starting to feel like I've come back to life again.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, there's so many pieces of, like, for a lot of us, especially, I'm assuming, right, knowing you and knowing who you're calling in on this space, like high performing women that have created things. And there's a lot of really powerful and positive outcomes that have come from a lot of these ways of being. And that's also why it's important to not bastardize them or like disown them and shame them out of being there, because a lot of these, you know, safety strategies and like these kind of ways that we've moved through the world have paid off, right? And so it's also being able to take the really positive aspects of them, but then also, like, again, like the context or the texture that it comes from, and really like reintegrating them, you know, like when I started kind of moving away from the super hyper vigilant, like always driving forward version of me, you know, I kind of went, you know, it's like the pendulum swung, like very like, I don't want to do anything, and and like it was just like very, you know, over there in my feminine, and then like now I'm just a lot more kind of integrated of like, yeah, they both get to coexist, but it's also like, how does that yearning, desire-led feminine inform the masculine? But how does it how do we let that lead our life versus the production, the hyperactive nervous system? And also, you know, one of the big things that, you know, with Muse and with this work too, is like really disassociating from this assumption that like over there, when we get to that place, is when we allow ourselves to experience our life, because that's what keeps everybody chasing, proving on the hamster wheel. And again, it's the capacity. It's like, do you have the capacity to land and experience your life without that constant chase? And so it's this really, it's this reprogramming, and it's so insidious. You really got to start catching it. And like one of the things I realized the last places that I was doing it was like a relationship. It's like, once I get in the relationship, then I'll like feel stable and I'll da. And I was like, oh girl, you're doing that thing. Like, it's like any place that we're putting over there when we can finally, you know, experience the life we're wanting to create. And that's to the point too of the desire. It's this countercultural new way of doing things. It's a big thing inside of Muse, is being able to realize, like, for so many women, we've just devalued the gifts of the feminine. And it's really about being in the reclaiming of that. And that truly is, it does create, like, you start to live life a very different way when you realize that you can trust, what is this inner yearning desiring for? Like, what is this desire wanting? Is it telling me, oh, to take a dance class? It's telling me to that, and like starting to really trust these, whatever they are. Like Lexi and I did not set out to build this business. We were following desires. We were exploring our yearning. We were trusting and leaning in what felt good. And then it just got to the point where we couldn't not do this thing. And now it's like the most lit up thing that we do. But it didn't come from that old paradigm of like, let me sit down and write a business plan and decide what to do. And obviously all that stuff is still really beautiful and amazing. But a big piece of this practice is, how can I trust that what feels good is also leading me towards what I want? Like, even when it doesn't feel tangible, like, oh, how is a dance class going to help me make money? But hey, look at that. It has, you know, but it's like leaning into that feminine yearning and trusting that is information for you to follow, is a big shift around.
It's huge. You know, in 2014, I had adrenal fatigue, and I was yearning to do my yoga teacher certificate, and not to teach yoga, but I actually humorously turned out to be, and I'm like, I shouldn't boast, but I boast. I'm actually the best yoga teacher. Like, I get into
you should boast. You should boast.
Oh my gosh. I think people at first, actually my business partner at the time, I had to teach a class to her just to get my certificate. And she literally did the class with one eye open, because she was like, who the fuck is this? And I'm so like in my belly and earth mama voice, and we're tapping into nature. And people were just like, we don't actually know who this person is. But it came from a yearning to do something different, but to fill myself up, to meet a different edge of myself. And actually, as I got into my body, that was the year we hit 7 figures, and we hit it faster. And it was, now that I reflect on it, it's that I'm aching for something else. I don't just want this business. Like, it's so important to me. And I know it's going big and stuff, but there has to be something for myself in here because I feel like I'm losing me. I feel like there's no meaning. I'm feeling like it's just boring and I needed to open up to something. But then again, as I look at it, I was like, oh, well, it makes sense. Doing yoga, opening up your energy system, getting into your body, calming your nervous system. It was all the things that I was doing that we're talking about now. Or actually, I joke that when I moved to London, I mean, we got there and we were just clubbing all the time. But then I ended up finding this amazing job at the salary that I wanted, working for the most amazing beer company in the UK and the most amazing entrepreneur. And I'm like, huh. So I was opening up my sacral chakra, or I was tapping into my body, and miracles happen. And so every time I feel that I can't trust life or something is freaking out, I actually just go back to being in my body, because that is what opens everything up. And we do, especially as women, we've got these amazing, powerful systems in our body. And so opening up to what is actually in there, and, the sacrum, there's womb meditations, and there's all of this stuff, but there is actually an aliveness in our own body. Our body is alive. We have a heart. There's energetic systems. And I think that's also something that we've started to wake up to. And so is that why embodiment practices are so important? Can you talk more about that? Like, why embodiment? Why get into your body just to know it? But two, why would you do an embodiment practice like dancing or something? Why is that actually important? And what does that help us do? Or, if you're like, okay, I'm going to do this to achieve something, what's the ideal outcome, if you will, for those high achievers who are listening to this? What is the actual reason you would want to do an embodiment practice?
Yeah, great question. And just to kind of flow on with your point about the body there as well. And like, and you said something as well about like trusting life. And that's the thing, when we have the deeper capacity to trust ourselves, because truthfully, a lot of women don't trust ourselves. Like, we externalize, we look for validation, we're not sure if we're making the right decision, we're overthinking, we're analyzing, we're like, what do you think about that? What do you think about? Who do I need to be for you? Right. So there's actually a deep sense of like lack of trust that a lot of women have. And then of course, how do we trust life if we don't even trust ourselves? So, this deep like union that happens when we start to do this work, where we can deeply trust ourselves because we know we have us. We know we always can hold ourselves through stuff. We know that we are also like really connected to life itself, because when we're truly connected to our desires, like really our desires are gifts from the divine. Like that is like, why are you the person that feels like you have the desire for that? Like, it's truly they are gifts from the divine. And so when we start to trust that, then we come into the deeply trusting union with ourselves and life itself. And so like, that's a pretty yummy place to live from, right? That's a pretty nervous system regulating belief system to hold. And truthfully, like, there is no quality of life without being in your body. There just isn't. Like, as someone who spent 30 and that's a blanket statement, obviously. Of course there is. It's a nuanced statement, but like the experience of your life that most humans, not just women, but definitely women are looking for happens in your body. Like for someone who spent 33 or more years of her life disconnected deeply from my body, this is why, honestly, I have such strong feelings around dieting, around calorie counting, around stuff like that. Anything that's like externalized, like you do you boo, like, but it didn't work for me, because what it is, it's just like externalized set of rules about how to interact with your body. Like I was like, I had such strict rules about like what I should eat, how my body should move so that I would look a certain way. And it was all head based. It was like, this is the rule. This is how it should be. And I would completely override my body. Like I'd be walking to workout classes so fatigued, but I'm like, I've got to do this workout because this is the rule. Right. And it was just so externalized. And so, really starting to come back into our bodies it's like the homecoming for all women, because for women, our wisdom, our oracle, our intuition, our pleasure, our discernment, all of that lives in our body. It's a felt experience. And that's why so many women are like numb, overthinking, disconnected, anxious, like all of that is like really strong signs that we've left the body and we're in this like processing mode. And so like really starting to like commit to coming into our bodies is crucial. That's where all of our truth lives, like all of it, not to mention your pleasure, your aliveness, your turn on, your magnetism. Like there's no such thing as a magnetic woman who is strictly in her head and not in her body. That's it. Not a thing that happens, right? It's like, you know, the experience of a magnetic woman when she walks into the room, she is in her body. Yeah. And so, you know, just, it's only really worth it for you if you want to feel like more joy, more aliveness, more turn on, more quality of life in every experience of your life, more discernment, more intuition, more just inner trust in knowing, more pleasure, only if you want those things.
Yes. And so for a woman who is curious about it, or a man, if they're curious about it, but have no idea where to start or how to get in the body, what would you say to them? What would be the first step?
Yeah, great question. The first thing really is like, again, titration, starting slow. Like you can't, the thing with this is you can't get it wrong. So the only way to essentially get embodiment wrong is to overthink it. You know, when we hosted our embodiment retreat earlier this year, it was so wild and funny just to see like how much processing there was. And it's like, that's the opposite essentially of embodiment. So when you're overthinking it, when you're not sure if you're doing it right, when you're not sure, like that's
perfectionism.
Yeah, like you can't get it wrong to be in your body unless you're just over analyzing it and getting into story. So the first really, really great and easy way, which you can kind of do anywhere, is just like closing your eyes, starting to take some deep breaths, like starting to bring your awareness like onto your body. Start to see if you can notice any sensations, just starting to bring your energy, your focus, your breath like into your body. If you like, I always invite people to maybe slowly put some hands somewhere on their body, but you're just starting to attune. Can I notice anything? Are there any sensations? Am I tight anywhere? Is there tingling? Is there warmth? Is there anything? And, you know, as someone, like I said, who was in her head for 33 plus years of her life, I was the girl that when people said, where do you feel that in your body? I wanted to punch them in the face. Like I got so triggered by that question. So I was like, I don't fucking know where I feel in my body. What are you fucking talking about? So just like numbness, feeling nothing, all of those things are perfect. It's signs, it's signals. It's like, you can't like, but just noticing, because there will be a point when you continue the practice that you will start to become really attuned. Like this, again, all of this is a practice. You start to become really attuned. Like, what am I feeling? Oh, there's that. Oh, there's some tightness. Oh, there's that. And again, not overthinking things, you're just noticing. You're starting to just become, like build interoceptive awareness about your internal world.
Yeah. And it's not about the results. You know, I was having lunch with a friend yesterday, and we're both in PR, and for me, PR and entrepreneurship with my business. And so it's 24/7. You know, you're on that 24/7 news cycle, or now social media cycle. And we were talking about the inability just to sit, because we don't come from a career background or a business background that kind of allows you to sit. And so she was saying, we were talking about meditation, and she goes, oh gosh, you know, I couldn't do it. And I said, just sit for 5 minutes, and just don't worry about the thoughts that are happening. Just sit down for 5 minutes. And I think even from a meditation perspective, we're still sold this idea that I need to sit for 20 minutes. And so unless we're able to achieve that result and being able to do it for 20 minutes, there's even perfectionism in trying to meditate, which for me is wild, because that is not the point of it all. But we're still trying to tick those boxes and to have that rigidity even around our wellness practices, or now our somatic practices. So I love what you say is just like, you know, get into the body and listen or experience or feel, even if it's just for 1 minute, and you are not going to die.
Yeah, I really want to just underline that, because this has been coming up a lot lately with our clients and on calls, where it's like, life is lifing, and like just people that, you know, busy moms and with businesses and partnerships, and, you know, like everybody, this is going to look different for everybody. This is the thing too. Like I'm single, live alone, I do my thing. I have a lot of time and space. I value this highly. I'm a practitioner. Like, you know, I have a deep embodiment practice. And it can take 2 minutes. It can take 1 minute. It can take 4 minutes. Like you could radically shift how you feel in your body and how you feel for the rest of your day with literally 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Like I'm not kidding. Like it does not have to take a lot, But this is a piece of like self-responsibility. Like, are you going to be responsible for the energy that you bring, for how you feel in your body, for the quality of life you want to experience that day? Like, these are the little practices where it's like, we also have to have the discipline. Like, okay, so if I'm in control of how I feel today, like, what could I do to shift that? What could I do to embody the version of me that I really want to embody? What is some stuff I need to shake off? And like, some days for me, that might be like a really sensual, yummy song. Some days, like yesterday, I did like I think it was like 5 minutes of like head banging, which was so fun, shaking, sounding, smashing my body. And it was so fun and like releasing and higher energy. But it's like these micro moments, like these are what we're responsible for, but they will shift every area of your life. Like later on that day, I was walking down the street and I was like making eyes for these hot guys and like smiling and having these smiles. And I was like, wait, I don't normally like do that, but it was just like some energy that was there. And like, these are the little practices that allow you to anchor in what version of yourself do you want to bring into your life today.
Yes, I love it. And it
doesn't have to take long.
When you talk about that, it's the reminder that we are the creators of our lives. And the programming says that we are actually, you know, God, we're brought on this earth and God gives us a life. And it's just that powerless mentality, if you will. And all of a sudden you're waking up to your own power and taking responsibility and realize you're the creator. So as I create this, what responsibility am I taking for how I want to feel or how I want to be or how alive I want to feel? Because nobody's going to give that to you. And the extraordinary experience is the ability to be able to give that to yourself. And again, going back to magnetism, or, you know, people talk about the law of attraction and what is it you attract, but everything is attracted to you. The universe responds to you when you become that creator. When you are in your own dojo and experiencing it, that's where life explodes. And again, for the overachiever, I know to your mind, it does not seem possible like this can happen, but you're proof of it because everything has shifted for you and you are magnetizing life at this crazy level.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. And also, yes, that's the thing. It's like it is possible. And also that means that like, not only can you experience the results of the things you want to bring into your life, but it also means in all the micro moments, you're also experiencing your life. Because again, when we're on this chase and this push and I've got to do the 1, 2, 3 and I got to tick the boxes, it's this, what can really, again, it's that insidious, it takes us out of the experience of our life because we're saying somewhere over there when we do all these things, then I'll feel the way I want to feel or be the woman I want to be or da. But like, again, unless we really condition like, oh, I'm in my life right now. What's the version of myself I want to experience today? What's the version of my life I want to experience today? Like, and that becomes the practice. And therefore you start to embody that version of yourself and of your life that is experiencing things you want, like right now. And then of course you attract that because again, it's not coming from, and this was my last piece of that clicked in for me was around dating and relating. There was this little piece of me that was still like, oh, when I get chosen and when I'm with this person and it was like, it's leaky. It's leaky energy. Yep. Like it's like, I don't want to call anybody in from that space. That's not grounded. That's not truly going to give me. And back to your point too, it's like, we are, even I was just thinking when I told you briefly about this guy that I'm seeing, and I had this really yummy feelings, you know, the other day. And I was just like, my gosh, that's so yummy. And then I literally had this moment where I just anchored that in. I was like, this is yummy because you're yummy, by the way. Like, this is not because he's yummy. This is not something he's giving you. Like, you get to be like in ownership of this yumminess. And it just, it's like, yes, like that's, and what that does is it just creates so much empowerment and it creates so much anchoring because again, then the quality of our life and the quality of our experience is not contingent. And then, of course, what that does is it makes you more magnetic. It makes you more full, right? It's like this fullness that you can embody because it's not like, oh, it's because of that. It's because of that. Let me grasp onto that thing so I can. It's like, no, I'm full because I'm full of my own radiance, you know? Like it's a whole different come from.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Obviously, I get excited about this.
You do. And I hope that people are catching this on video because Emily is just glowing. And also we'll put this in the show notes, but you can see Emily's magic on her Instagram. We'll include a link to it. And you can just see, you know, just the vibrancy that she's living with and embodies and is teaching. And it's it's just so needed. More of this is needed because ultimately, we all just want to connect with ourselves and connect with our loved ones and with life in this big, big way, because you only get one. None of us are getting out alive. None of us. So you might as well have the most extraordinary experience. And again, we're taught to grasp out of it, or our nervous system is taught to grasp everything outside of us when actually everything truly does live within us. So why not experience it? But it's not an easy road sometimes, and it's not an unscary path, if you will, but it's worth it. Yeah. It is worth it.
Yeah, it's one of these journeys, you've obviously been through Muse, so you have more context around it. But it's one of these things that's can be really hard to describe the shifts without sounding fluffy, like alignment and intuition and magnetism. Like it sometimes just sounds so high level, but it's like it literally fundamentally shifts every area of your life, like everything: my money, my intimacy, my dating, my body, my health, like everything, the quality of my life every day. Like it's night and day practically. And it's just, for the woman that's feeling that yearning, like just really knowing, like there's the knocks, the little nudges, the little yearnings, like really starting to pay attention to those, because it is an invitation to just so much more, like, so I just joke, it's like, yes, and more, please. Like it's that life starts to come from this place where it's not, I need more of that. It's like, oh, yes, and more, please. Yes, and more, please. Like, I'm full, but I'll take more. I'm full, but I'll take more. And it's yummy.
Yes. And that actually
and every woman deserves that.
Yes. And to the receiving, that was one thing actually that I would love to end on, is receiving. When you are magnetizing and magnetic to it, you can receive even more easy. And I think for women, the hyperachievers who are used to the getting, you can actually receive from this space.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was the girl that was so uncomfortable with a man paying on a date several years ago, because I thought that my value was my business and money and these types of things. And it's like, because when we don't truly value these beautiful feminine traits, we don't feel worthy to receive, because we don't even see the value that we bring. So of course we don't want to receive, because, well, I'm not bringing any value. Like, what? And it's just really this reclamation that comes when we really start to own these parts of us, and these and soften that receiving, because when we have space for it, we have truth it's resonant. We're like, oh yeah, I deserve to receive this. I have space for this. I'm a yes for this.
And I trust to receive. Yeah. I can trust myself, and I don't have to make it happen.
Yeah.
I get
the
to
receiving
receive
piece
it.
is
Yes.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a big desire of the feminine, we have a, I'll give you the link for the show notes of that. We have a specific thing, a specific training that's free on receiving.
Yes.
So we can share that with them as well.
Thank you so much. This was such a rich
pleasure.
conversation. It is. It is a pleasure and a delight and a joy. But thank you so much for bringing your personal insight, your expertise, your truth, and just the beauty of everything that you brought to the world and to women and to how you are living. Just magnificent. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And I'll just quickly present that, anyone that's listened to this that is feeling like, what is my next step around, really embodying more of this feminine, this nervous system work, you can, you mentioned it at the front, you can go to awakeningmuse.com/quiz. And we have created something very juicy and very meaty there that will give you some support and next steps on where you are in that journey as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Powerful Podcast. I've so enjoyed sharing all of my insights, all my mistakes, all of my learnings as I grew and scaled my business from 6 to 7 figures. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a review. And then I'll send you back my top 3 ways to make $10,000. And I tell you, they're super easy, super creative, and super easy for you to implement. So please drop us the review, send it over, and we will send you back with my top 3 ways to make $10,000.